After losing my only love to a hotter guy, I felt invisible at 28. I'm just not attracted to you anymore, she said, leaving me isolated and depressed. Now I'm a self-employed artist in a nice house, yet I ache for connection. Will anyone see beyond my medium ugly exterior? This is going to be extremely long. I do not expect anyone to actually read this, and I know it will probably receive zero replies, but this seems to be the place to get things off your chest. And I have no one to talk to about this kind of stuff, so here I am. I am mostly writing to collect my own thoughts on everything and maybe start to move past it. However, if anyone has any helpful advice or insights, that would be great. I miss my old life and dislike the person I have become, as well as the current reality of my daily life. For context, I am a 28-year-old male, self-employed, doing something creative that I am passionate about and moderately successful at, and I have my own place in my own car. I have an amazing family, a couple of great friends, and I have experienced romantic love many times in the past, despite not having it for quite a while now. I realize I have so much to be grateful for in my life, and my intention is not to complain because I know many people have it far worse than I do. However, the reality is that I have not been truly happy for quite some time, and I do not know how to go about becoming happy again. I live alone and have very little physical contact with others due to working from home. I will not specify what I do because it might reveal too much of my identity, but let's just say I am an artist of sorts and a musician. I am fortunate enough that I get to do something I love for a living. I am my own boss, make my own schedule, and work from the comfort of my home. I have received a lot of creative validation from my career. Famous people follow me and commission work. My favorite musicians are fans of mine, and I have gained a relatively large following on social media, among other accolades. So you are probably wondering, what is the problem? I am incredibly lonely and feel invisible to almost everyone around me. Sure, I receive validation on the internet, but it does not feel real. It also feels quite shallow, as all these people admire my work but not necessarily me. I feel that if I were to disappear, hardly anyone would actually notice or care. Part of it, well, probably most of it is certainly my own doing, as I have learned to build up walls due to some past trauma that I'll explain shortly. I know I do not really let people in out of fear of rejection or getting hurt. The issue is that this seems to be how I am now, and I have no idea how to change my circumstances, nor do I even see a way out of them. I have not been in a serious relationship since 2019. My ex and I got together when we were 17 and 19 years old, and we were head over heels for each other. We moved in together out of necessity much too quickly after only a few months of dating. Long story. We were together for 3 years, and I was so convinced she was my person. Every other girl became invisible to me, and I felt very fortunate to have someone who seemed to love me so purely and deeply. We had truly beautiful storybook-like moments early on, and I thought we would be together forever. You know the drill. Eventually, she cheated on me with 2 of our friends in a threesome that I was lied to about and deliberately excluded from. We had discussed the idea of threesomes and group scenarios before this, and I was open to it, but she went and did it behind my back, which effectively severed the trust. I forgave her, of course, after a very brief period of being away from her and staying with family because she was extremely apologetic and begged me not to leave her. This was obviously a mistake, and while we remained together, she became increasingly distant and discussed breaking up every few months until she ultimately cheated on me a couple more times, which I did not discover until after we broke up, and ended things suddenly one morning. I obviously made numerous mistakes, but the biggest one was probably begging her for reasons why she suddenly felt so differently toward me. That was when the most hurtful words I have ever heard came out of her mouth. I am just not attracted to you anymore. She told me she wanted to be with people of different body types, different features, and some other comments like that. I do not remember the exact words she used, but it still cuts like a knife to this day. She had previously told me the primary reason for our breakup was that we wanted different lifestyles that did not align, which she was probably right about. She wanted to travel the world in a van. I had dreams of being a musician producer, which required a lot of time in a studio recording something I could not pack up into a van. Despite these valid reasons, the only one that has lingered in my mind is her complete loss of attraction toward me. The most beautiful, amazing, smart, cool, talented, and kind person I thought I knew suddenly viewed me as essentially unattractive and not at all what she wanted. Within a week, she had a new boyfriend who she swore she was not dating, and he was the physical opposite of me. Tall, tan, in great shape, drove a motorcycle, and worked out regularly. What made this worse was that she insisted on still talking to me all the time and claimed she wanted to remain friends. So I had to listen to all about the new guys she was seeing and how happy she was living alone, etc. confusingly. She would also tell me how sad she felt about how things turned out between us. There were multiple occasions when she would come over, hug me, and cry or lie at my feet sobbing while I played the guitar, or she would ask me to sleep in bed with her and cuddle, but she would never reciprocate if I tried to make things even slightly romantic or mentioned getting back together. To say it confused and broke me is an understatement. I am about 5 feet 8 inches tall, weigh 170 pounds, am white with dirty blonde hair and many tattoos and sort of have a baby face. I have never been a hot guy, but I used to consider myself reasonably attractive before the breakup and never felt that she was out of my league or anything. However, after the breakup and seeing her so happy with other people, knowing one of her primary reasons for our breakup was the simple lack of physical attraction, it spiraled me into a downward spiral. I felt incredibly ugly and unlovable, like a literal human piece of trash. I stopped getting haircuts for 3 years, refrained from shaving my face for months, and grew a patchy beard. I gained probably 20 pounds from stress eating, as food became one of my few remaining brief sources of dopamine. I effectively gave up on my appearance altogether and began to unintentionally prove her right by making myself less attractive. I also started isolating myself because I could no longer pretend to be happy and wear a fake smile anywhere outside of work. I lost many friends in the breakup because they were her friends, and the friends I had from high school or before her had all moved away, had children, acquired new jobs, and generally progressed with their lives. Meanwhile, I felt stuck in my hometown, feeling worthless and invisible to everyone around me. I had to move back in with my parents, which was another blow to my self-esteem. However, after 6 months, I saved enough money to get an apartment and moved out on my own. I tried to date a few months later and made some new female friends who gave hints that they were interested in me. Even a couple of them later told me they had crushes on me at that time, but I was too engulfed in self-pity to notice or act upon it, and I remained rather lonely and unhappy. This was around 2019, and during that short time, dating had drastically shifted to the point where dating apps became the standard way to meet someone. I had always met my previous partners in places like school, work, or through the occasional direct message on Instagram. Now it seemed that unless I could take a bunch of hot pictures of myself and create a perfect biography, I was destined to be alone. I did have a brief fling, actually with the girl who had previously been involved in the threesome with my ex, and things got fairly serious between us. We were saying I love you and all that. However, she was polyamorous and already had 2 partners of her own, one of whom was the father of her child, and I just never felt like I was the focus of her attention. It took a couple of years, but that eventually dwindled. Then COVID-19 happened, causing a major shift in my life. I lost my job at a music store, lost my health and dental insurance, and suddenly had to move in with my best friend so I could figure something else out. At this point, I began working on my art as a side hustle initially, but people really enjoyed my work and it quickly expanded into a full-time gig. I felt very satisfied professionally, as I was making more money than I ever had before, and for the first time I enjoyed my work. However, I still felt incredibly empty due to the lack of love in my life. This was heightened by living with my best friend, who is a total ladies' man and has never been single for more than a month or two in his life. I watched him hook up with random girls on Tinder and cycle through 2-3 month relationships with attractive, interesting girls whom I would have loved a chance with, all while he was accomplishing this with nearly no effort. Meanwhile, I received no real-life attention from women, maybe a handful of matches on dating apps, and never formed a real connection or went on any dates, despite trying exceedingly hard and investing a substantial amount of money and time on these applications. I likely ended up feeling worse overall from my dating attempts, as they caused me to focus on everything I did not have that other men did specifically: conventional good looks and charm, as well as careers and financial stability. Fast forward to now. I have built my business over the last 5 years into something that is genuinely impressive. Even I will not deny myself that validation. I was able to acquire a nice 3-bedroom house for myself with plenty of space to work in, a recording studio upstairs, and all that good stuff. Virtually everyone I respect in my industry knows who I am, follows me, and appreciates my work. However, I now find myself feeling more alone than ever. I carry such a heavy workload and have so many people depending on me that I feel I can never take time away from my work. I have to maintain a pretty grueling schedule to keep up with everything, and living alone means my bills are incredibly high. So even though I earn what should be sufficient money, I do not feel like I am getting ahead financially, and I am constantly stressed about completing work and meeting deadlines. This intense focus on work is necessary, but it leaves me with almost no free time to pursue anything I want outside of work. There is no time to date, no energy to keep wasting on dating apps, and no opportunity to engage in social activities to meet friends or partners the old-fashioned way. I just feel trapped in my house, surrounded by music and art that I love, but with nobody to enjoy it all with. Furthermore, nobody even seems remotely interested. I have developed a few crushes on friends I have made in the industry, but each time the feelings have not been reciprocated, and they believed we were better off as friends. I constantly feel invisible and unattractive. When I go out, nobody flirts with me or shows any interest. I am a pretty shy, reserved person and do not wish to make anyone uncomfortable, so I almost never make the first move without someone hinting that they might want me to. It is starting to feel as if there is no way out of this situation. I feel that no one will ever look beneath the surface to see there is actually a pretty cool, kind-hearted person underneath my quiet, reserved, average-looking exterior. I sense that all anyone sees in me is an unattractive, average-at-best guy who can be a good friend, but nothing more. I feel I will never find romantic love again. Consequently, I have essentially given up on the idea of love. It is not something that is meant for me, at least not for the current version of myself. Most days, I can accept this and focus on my work or on activities that bring me joy, such as movies, books, art, and music. Today, however, is not one of those days. I do not truly know why I just detailed my entire life story here for strangers to read. I do not expect anyone to be able to help me with this. I recognize that it is nobody's fault but my own, and that the only person who can fix it is me. However, I feel as if I have almost no time to address the things I need to do to find love. I do not drink except socially on very rare occasions, and I despise spending time in bars surrounded by intoxicated individuals attempting to present themselves as the coolest person in the room. I also do not want to date someone who wants to visit a bar multiple nights a week. Therefore, already, probably the most common place where people go to find love aside from the internet is off limits for me. I know there are other places to meet people, but in today's world, everyone appears so wary of strangers, especially male ones, that I feel that my attempts to speak to them would be an unwanted intrusion. Essentially, I am just incredibly lonely and have no idea how to rectify that. I feel destined to be alone forever. I believe I missed my opportunity for love long ago, and now I feel so pathetic that people can sense it and want nothing to do with me. As painful as it is to admit, sometimes I believe I would save myself a lot of heartache if I were not here anymore to witness how much lonelier I will become. However, I do not genuinely want to die. I just want something to change. I want to feel as though I matter to someone other than my parents again. I want someone to confide in when times are tough, someone to hold, someone to care for, and someone who feels they need me. I simply want something to change. I want to feel significant and attractive to someone again, to myself again. I desire it more than anything in the world, but it does not seem to be in the cards for me. I am doing my best to accept that and concentrate on the many things I have to appreciate, but some nights, like tonight, that is just too challenging. All I can do is keep going, I suppose. For better or worse, at least my work and output make me feel worthy of something in life. Perhaps that will eventually lead to a woman being interested in me again. Only time will tell. If you read all this, you deserve a medal, and I hope your pillow feels cool at night. Story 2. I thought I'd have a cozy Valentine's with my girlfriend, but instead I ended up babysitting a drunk mess who vomited in my toilet and pissed in my bed. I think it might be time for me to go to bed, she said, as I microwaved my untouched lasagna. All I got, a vape and a Netflix logout request. So I broke up with my girlfriend the morning after Valentine's Day, and I am still reeling from it and the entire relationship even now, so I wanted to write it all out. Buckle in because this will be very long, but it is absolutely worth it. If you want a crazy story involving tequila and the question, is exposing your breasts to catch your vomit a logical thought to have? You are in for a treat. My now ex-girlfriend, 21 years old, and I, 22 years old, were dating for about 2 months. Things were good at the beginning, but I started to feel that we were not quite compatible at this point. I figured it was just the 2-hour distance getting to me. She was not the best texter anyway, but since the university semester started, our conversations had become increasingly one-sided. Her responses were extremely dry, and she would only have meaningful conversations if she was depressed or venting. At this point, we had not seen each other in person since New Year's, and I had only seen her once over Christmas despite her staying with a friend just 10 minutes away from me. However, she had claimed she was staying with that same friend on New Year's so well. Then right before New Year's, she announced that she would come to see me, only because I had alcohol at home and she was too broke to go out drinking. I told her that my flatmates and I were going clubbing, but she said, "Oh, that is fine, you can just leave me at your flat and I will just drink and watch television on my own." I had known her for barely 2 months at that point, and she had come to my flat only once before. This would be her first time meeting 2 out of my 3 flatmates. Like, what the hell? You just want to show up to a strange flat and sit and drink their alcohol alone while they are out clubbing. I said I would stay home with her. However, one of my flatmates ended up getting sick, so I gave her ticket to my girlfriend. The night was a bit of a mess because my girlfriend was intoxicated before we even left the flat, stumbling around and being loud, and I spent most of New Year's essentially babysitting her. It was fine at the time because I was reasonably entertained at least, although she did embarrass herself and made me go home with her early. Skip to Valentine's Day. We decided to celebrate at my place because I have alcohol, her words, and to have a cozy night in where I would cook dinner and we would watch a movie. The day of I cleaned, dressed up nicely, and quickly did my makeup before literally sprinting to the bus station to meet her at 6 p.m. I am not the dress-up type, so I had been really worried about being underdressed and concerned that my gifts were not good enough because I had not gotten her flowers. It turns out I did not need to worry because she had not dressed up at all and had not done her makeup either. Which is fine, it's not like we were going out. We arrived at my flat and I pulled out my gifts for her, a chocolate rose, a heart-shaped lollipop, and a box of chai because she had been craving it and had called me crying a few days earlier because she was unable to get some for herself. She cried when I presented them to her and she expressed her regret for not having had time to get me anything, which again I understand, she is broke and busy. A few minutes later she asked if I had a vape. As far as I know, she did not vape and I would occasionally have one. I said no, so she declared that she would go get one. Because it's Valentine's Day, so why not? How incredibly romantic. I mentioned they have a 2 for 10 promotion, so she said she would get 2 and asked which flavor I wanted. Pineapple ice. I joked that this was a hilarious Valentine's gift, but I would take it. Except she returned with her favorite flavor and said, I just could not bring myself to buy the pineapple one. I do not like that flavor, so she picked up a random one that caught her eye. Then she asked, which one do I want to start with? Not me. Which one she wanted to start with, it was not even a gift for me, I was just allowed a puff of it, I suppose. Whatever, it was around 7 p.m., I started cooking dinner, and she announced that she intended to get quite drunk that night because she wanted to have a fun time. A bit unusual for Valentine's Day, but I figured it would be alright. I would probably get some funny videos to laugh at later. I put on a show I had been wanting to see her reactions to, so she sat on the sofa watching that while I cooked and mixed her drinks. Her drink of choice was tequila, and I had half a bottle, about 250 milliliters. So I was mixing it with orange juice when she decided she wanted to do a few shots to get herself going. By 9 p.m., the lasagna I made was ready to serve when my flatmate and her boyfriend returned home from their date. They came in to say hi and ask how our night was going, and my girlfriend started fussing over my flatmate's dress. Now she was already loud, but she kept screaming and then catching herself and apologizing for being so loud. I stood by the counter filled with second-hand embarrassment because, oh my god, this girl is drunk, and she had been quiet, so I had not noticed until then. My flatmates left after a few minutes and I thought, right, this is fine. Food is ready to go, so I will just go to the bathroom, then I will serve it, she will sober up, we will get the movie on and everything will be fine. I told her she was cut off until after dinner. There was a brief interlude while I had to negotiate with her, like you would with a dog over a ball, regarding the vaping because too much nicotine makes her nauseous, and she had been puffing like a steam train thus far. I pocketed them and left for 5 minutes. I came back to her still on the sofa and went to serve the food. Then I noticed that the tequila bottle was nearly empty. I asked if she had finished it. She said no, and when I held up the bottle, she saw that there was still a small amount left in it and said, see, it is not empty. Can I have that last bit? I beg your pardon, bearing in mind she had only eaten some of my chips in 2 hours and had now had the equivalent of 10 shots of tequila. No, you absolutely cannot have the last of it. Are you mad? I was now irritated and serving up the food when I looked back over at her and she was suddenly topless. Her breasts were just out in the middle of my living room while my flatmate and her boyfriend were home. What the hell? I shoved her shirt back on her only for her to pull down the collar and expose herself again. Why? Because she was about to be sick and the last time she threw up it got on her shirt but her breast would catch it. You know what else would catch it? The toilet bowl. Get to the bathroom right now. As I got her decent again and dragged her to the toilet, she asked me, can I take them out when I am in the bathroom? You know what? Fine, sure, just get moving. She stumbled into the bathroom, tried to turn on the tap to wash her hands, and proceeded to launch our toothbrush holder into the bathtub, then insisted on putting everything back before she would put her head over the toilet. I stepped outside and texted the flat group chat because I was furious by this point, and she came out a few minutes later. I did not hear her throwing up, but she said she was sick a little, so I hoped we were good. I got her water and her plate, but had to take it back a moment later because she needed to go vomit again. This time I did hear her throw up a bit and prayed she was okay and we could proceed with our night now. We settled down, turned on the movie, and she had a bit of lasagna and said it was very nice. But within a minute she started staring at the television with a blank expression and her jaw slack. I paused the film. She needed to vomit again. This time she sprinted to the bathroom, and I thought an exorcism would be less violent than what she was going through in that moment. I had always said tequila tasted like drain cleaner, but I did not mean for her to test it. Her vomiting was so loud that my flatmate heard it, and probably my upstairs neighbor too. She even got a little on the collar of her t-shirt because she forgot to pay attention to her neckline this time. She then stood, pulled down her pants, sat down on the toilet, looked me dead in the eyes and said, I think it might be time for me to go to bed. It was 10:15 p.m. Our dinner was getting cold and had barely been touched. She stood and pulled her leggings up, knocking over more things in the process, and then said, "I guess this shows what state I am in. My leggings are wet." I assumed she just soaked herself while washing her hands. She told me no. She threw up so hard that she urinated on herself. She threw up so hard she pissed herself. She took off her leggings while I got a bag for them, and I asked if she wanted to eat or lie down. She said she wanted to lie down and promptly curled up and passed out in my bed. It was 10:30 p.m. I microwaved my lasagna, sat on the couch, still in my nice clothes with my makeup done, and wondered how the hell I got here and what I was supposed to do with the rest of my night. I FaceTimed a friend and told them all about my night. They asked if I was sure I was not dating a man and said, "Who the hell does that?" I messaged my other flatmate asking if she was coming home that night and if I could sleep in her bed because my girlfriend was currently snoring in mine with her soiled underwear. She arrived home around 1 a.m., found me still on the sofa. This flatmate is my best friend, my ride or die, but if there is one thing I would never be able to do, it is share her bed. However, she took one look at me and said she would go make the bed for us both. I put the rest of the lasagna and my girlfriend's plate in the fridge. In the morning, my mind was made up. Any one of the events of the night I could have perhaps handled on its own, but together, last straw. A pattern of behavior was forming and I did not sign up to be a caretaker for a drunk. I texted her to say I was sleeping in my flatmate's room. I received a text back in the morning. "I am really sorry for the tequila. Not for ruining Valentine's Day, not for arriving empty-handed, not for disrespecting me, sorry for the tequila. She did not even wake up with a hangover, and she did not even learn her lesson either. She later told me how she fully intended to get blackout drunk again later that day. I suspect this was 50% true and 50% guilt-tripping. She asked if we were going to break up over this, so I decided I might as well do it then. She opened with, 'Are your flatmates mad at me?' And I said yes, they were upset on my behalf. She began crying and saying how she could never return and that she needed to leave, and she started hyperventilating, only stopping when I began to soothe her. And that is what got to me. The entire time, she was not remorseful for what she had done to me. She was sorry she embarrassed herself. She was sorry about the tequila. She began sobbing and begging for another chance, and had the audacity to claim we had a miscommunication regarding how we expected the night to unfold. What? Because I wanted a nice meal dinner and to watch a movie with my girlfriend, and she wanted to splatter my toilet with vomit and my sheets with urine. There is also a stark difference between becoming a little drunk and having a nice time and becoming blackout drunk, which she treated as just a minor mistake. She stated verbatim that she was looking for oblivion, and in the same breath tried to convince me that she was mentally stable, doing well, and not self-destructive. She told me she loved me, it had barely been 2 months, that I was the best thing that had happened to her, that she would do anything. She would stop vaping and drinking, anything I wanted. Except I did not want her to do it for me, I wanted her to do it to improve her own life. I heated up her lasagna from the night before and made her eat it for breakfast before sending her home, and she turned to me and asked where the vapes were. I lied and said they were dead. She laughed and called my bluff, so I said they were confiscated. She asked by whom, looking like she was going to go find my flatmates and demand them back, and I said by me. They were my Valentine's gift. She promptly fell silent. She got ready and I walked her to the bus station. We were literally at the station, her bus was already there, and she asked if I thought she had time to buy a vape. I said, absolutely not, sent her on her way and headed home. When I arrived, my flatmates had got me my favorite chips and chocolate to make me feel better. My flatmates had done more for me than my girlfriend had. To A, M, and S, I love you all so very much. I checked my phone and I had a text from my now ex-girlfriend. The literal final text I received from her. I expected a message that said, "For what it's worth, I am so sorry." What did it actually say? "Can you log out of my Netflix?" What a ridiculous joke. But hey, at least I have one incredibly funny story to tell. It turns out I really like pink grapefruit vapes, the random flavor she bought, though I am now struggling to quit the habit all over again. Anyway, thank you to anyone who made it this far. I love you all. Fauna. Summary: the story of my chaotic relationship with a budding alcoholic that ended on a Valentine's Day where I got her gifts, dressed nicely, and prepared dinner. And all I received in return was an empty tequila bottle, vomit in my toilet, urine in my bed, and a vape. Story 3. My perfect life is poisoning my mind. I hold deep resentments against people who have done nothing wrong. After moving away to escape my friends, I pondered, why don't I just kill my mom myself? Now, I wonder if cutting ties will end my torment or leave me empty. To begin, I, 19-year-old female, would like to express that I have truly been blessed with a most extraordinary life. I have 2 loving parents with a comfortable income, a sibling with whom I get along, and wonderful friends throughout my life. I have experienced no trauma, no hardships, literally nothing. There is absolutely no justification or explanation for why I think and behave the way I do. I would also like to mention that, yes, I am a teenage girl. However, if anyone suggests that every teenage girl feels this way, I will be very angry. I recognize that everyone experiences these feelings, but it is my responses and mindset that make me a bad person. You can criticize me as much as you like, I think I need it. When I am in a good mood, it feels as if I forget that I have ever been in a bad mood. I cannot imagine ever wanting to leave them or hurt them, and I care for them deeply. Yet at other times it feels as though a switch has flipped and I just hate them. I want to leave and never see them again. I hold on to deep resentments against individuals who have been nothing but kind. I tend to forget anything good about a person, focusing solely on any minor flaws or trivial issues that upset me, and I hold on to those negative thoughts. If I am in a bad mood, those thoughts fill my mind with noise. Anything I do will be criticized by my internal version of someone I haven't spoken to in years, or will remind me of some random incident that causes me to become instantly angry. The worst part is that I know my anger is never justified. No one has ever treated me poorly. And no, this isn't about not realizing that I am being mistreated. I have never been mistreated, I simply treat others poorly. I have treated each of my partners poorly. When I am in a bad mood, I can never recall ever loving them, nor can I conceive of them genuinely loving me. My reactions involve either blocking them, remaining silent, or going on rants about how they are being mistreated by me and need to leave me. At times, I even express my inability to understand why anyone could love anyone else, claiming that it is foolish and makes absolutely no sense. Hearing such sentiments from someone you love is hurtful. They have consistently been incredible and supportive, but any attempts at comfort only make me angrier. I desire them to be upset with me, but when they express any dissatisfaction toward me, which is quite rare, I either become angrier or overly clingy and apologetic. For some reason, their attempts to communicate regarding their own mental health trigger me. I loathe it. I feel so immature, like a child wanting to play on the swings but finding that someone else is there first. The reality is that they all want to perceive me as a good person. I know that I am not a good person. A character is described as apologetic when they lash out because deep down they hate themselves. However, I lash out because I dislike them. They irritate me, they annoy me. It does not matter what they do or what kind of person they are. Are they talkative, lively, and opinionated? I find that annoying. Are they reserved, well-educated, and great listeners? I still find that irritating. Are they affectionate, adventurous, and fun? Then I have disdain for them. There is no correct answer. I am uncertain about what to do or how to manage my own behavior. When I am in a good mood, my solution is to be a better person. Journal, determine what specifically made me so angry. Remind myself that I truly love them. Breathe and reflect before speaking and acting. However, the moment I enter a bad mood, my solution shifts to end things with them. Avoid making new friends. You only harm them and they irritate you. Remaining in these relationships benefits no one. I find that both sides of me consistently believe they are completely correct, while the other side is entirely wrong. When I was younger, I would often reflect on the events of the day while going to bed, as one tends to do. On nights when I felt overwhelmed with too many regrets, I would create rules to follow. These rules varied according to my emotional state. Stop spending time with your friends, stop being so loud, indicating a bad mood. Suppress your anger, be friendly and open to everyone. Indicating a good mood. Is it better to break up with my boyfriend and block all of my friends? It seems to be a 50-50 split between good and bad moods. If I maintain these relationships, I will feel dissatisfied half of the time. If I leave, I will feel miserable for half of the time. This issue only arises with those close to me. With most people, I harbor no anger. I genuinely feel completely fine with assisting someone, listening to them, or spending time with them. However, as we grow closer, I start to feel slightly annoyed with them now and then. When we become closer, that annoyance becomes more frequent. When we are very close, well, please refer to my earlier remarks. I believe I had the typical amount of violent thoughts while growing up. Some were intrusive, others were amusing, and some were simply curious. But one day, while I was working on a project, I experienced a train of thought that genuinely frightened me. I was thinking about my mother's death, which was commonly enough, but then I thought, if my mother were about to have a terrible, fatal accident and someone offered me a button that would prevent it with no consequences, I would not press it. If that is the case, then why don't I just kill her now myself? I cannot explain it, but this felt different from any other thoughts about murder or harm, and it truly frightened me. I rushed to my room and lay on the floor because I didn't know how else to cope. Since then, aggressive thoughts about harming those I care about have become a regular occurrence, to the point that I am not even disturbed by them anymore. Instead, I find pleasure in them. I am aware that thoughts like these are typical, but I cannot stress enough how different they feel from my usual ones. They seem much more real, tangible, less rooted in annoyance, and more in this numb yet almost pleasurable anger. I have since graduated from high school and have relocated out of state for college. When people inquire about my reasons for moving away, I typically give a spiel about opportunities and personal growth or something similar. However, the truth is that the only comfort I found upon graduating was the knowledge that I would never have to see my friends again. This realization brought me peace during the final months of high school. To be honest, I had held this view for years. At night, whenever I became overwhelmed by the myriad of regrets I had accumulated throughout the day, the one thought that calmed me was, in a certain number of years, I will disappear and none of these regrets will matter. Naturally, I felt a bit sad when saying goodbye, and for the initial few weeks after moving away, I did not adhere to my disappear plan. I texted and called them because I genuinely loved and missed them. However, as time passed, the moments I spent loving them dwindled, while the resentments and regrets grew, and now I have not spoken to the people I grew up with in years. I apologize for how disorganized this message is. I wrote it entirely in a nonlinear fashion, working on multiple sentences simultaneously and switching moods throughout. I am certain that I did not convey everything I intended to express, but if I come across as an arrogant and ungrateful individual, then I am pleased to have captured some of my true essence through writing. Thank you for reading. This has been occupying my mind and I needed to express it.